Hi, everyone. I'm Harold Munro, editor-in-chief at the Vancouver Sun and Province, and joining me is our City Hall columnist, Dan Fumano. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Harold.
Another week. Last week, there was certainly a lot of discussion around some new numbers around the cost of the FIFA World Cup coming to Vancouver. What is the cost? How many games? What did we learn last week?
So yeah, essentially, last week we got this sort of updated cost estimates for hosting the some of the matches for the FIFA 2026 World Cup. And it's something people had been waiting for a while and, speculating about what the new numbers might be. And, as a lot of people expected, the cost has gone up significantly. Now, back in 2022, so only 2 years ago, Vancouver was named one of 16 host cities in North America. So we're only hosting a relatively small amount of the tournament. But initially, we thought Vancouver was going to be hosting 5 matches, and it was expected that the cost would be between 240 to 260 million. And now, since then, we've learned Vancouver will actually be hosting 7 matches instead of 5. And the new cost that we heard last week is between 483 million and 581 million. So it has roughly kind of doubled, from the estimated cost to host 5 games to the estimated cost to host 7 games. It's roughly doubled, or it may more than double, based on the numbers we had
And do we
previously
know
heard a
why?
couple of years
Do
ago.
we know why?
So we were sort of given 3 different reasons at the press event last week. One is around just inflation, and obviously there is this inflationary environment over the last couple of years. The cost of everything, just about everything, has gone up. So we are seeing budgets for all kinds of things going up. The other thing is, as we mentioned, the change between hosting 5 games to 7. So obviously there's more security costs associated with hosting the 2 extra games. There's more transportation needs. There's other things like that. And then the third thing, that was kind of mentioned broadly as a reason for the cost going up is around FIFA's requirements for upgrades to the stadium and the facilities. And one of the things I tried to press for to get an idea, well, how much of this increase kind of goes in each of those
Well,
categories? Is
yeah.
is most of the increase due to inflation? Is most of the increase, or is a lot of it due to FIFA's own requirements, and the organizers here and their understanding of those requirements kind of evolving? We could not get a clear answer about that, so I don't know. They just sort of said generally those are the 3 main reasons for the increases. So
Hmm. Well,
the
that's pretty outrageous that they can't tell us.
well, hopefully maybe it's
No
something we can try to
taxpayers will.
press.
Yeah.
We could try to press more because I mean they were sort of saying that, oh, when they released those numbers a couple of years ago, that was an early estimate, and they didn't know exactly, what all the requirements were going to be. Um, but so that kind of makes it sound like Vancouver NBC had agreed to host this thing before having a clear idea of what it was going to cost.
Right. The premier at the time, John Horgan, or someone at least in government, said that this was not a blank check, but it's starting to look more and more like a blank check. Like there doesn't seem to be a cap, is there, um, on anything at this point?
Not as far as we could tell, and that question came up as well. And no, not I don't know if there is any kind of a cap. Because yeah, you'll recall the BC government initially
Right.
did not want to put in a bid, for fear of cost overruns and cost benefit, and then at some point changed that. And I think one of the reasons was, obviously tourism and hospitality is a big part of BC's GDP, and I think there were worries coming out of COVID and the pandemic that, tourism might be slow to rebound, and this could be sort of a shot in the arm. I guess that was kind of one of the ideas, but obviously, yeah, now it appears like it's going to cost more.
So trying to parse then who pays for what. I mean, it all comes back to taxpayers, but there are different levels of taxpayers, obviously, federal, provincial, and then city of Vancouver taxpayers. So when it comes to stadium improvements, I imagine that's Pavco, which is a provincial responsibility. Is that are those costs covered by the province?
Yes, I believe so. And the federal government did, just last week at this event, the federal government announced they were kicking in a contribution of around 116 million, I believe,
Okay.
which they did say some of that will go towards the upgrades to BC Place. And the general manager of BC Place took media around on a little bit of a tour around the venue last week to show some of the areas that will need to be upgraded. And but we don't at this stage have a ton of uh yeah, like have a ton of
Right.
specificity or detail around that. But I mean, it was estimated that the cost for the BC Place upgrades, as well as the operations during the tournament, will cost Pavco between 149 million and 196 million. So that means, even if all of the federal government's contribution went towards that, it would not cover that
Okay.
whole thing. And then they expect that and this is what the government calls the gross core hosting costs, which appears to, include a range of different things, including these construction costs, security, transportation, traffic management, a bunch of different things.
Okay. Yeah, I think the one thing that's probably going to annoy many taxpayers when it comes to the stadium upgrades is that an unspecified amount of money, and I'd love to know what it is going to install luxury suites that are being demanded by the FIFA executives.
Right. And I
Yeah.
would like to get more detail about that. We don't currently have that.
Right. And then
I
do
mean,
they pay for all their food and wine and everything during the festivities? Yeah.
I'm not sure, but
Right. Right.
maybe.
So, we probably need a little bit more. Was FIFA at the event or are they
No,
yet
as far
sort
as
of
I was aware, there were no representatives of FIFA, as far as I could tell. At the sort of the formal press conference part of the event, you had, the mayor of Vancouver, you had BC Minister for Tourism, the federal minister for sport. So we had, some federal representation there, as well as representatives of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. They were on hand, but I don't believe there was anyone from FIFA, or if they were there, they did not speak or answer questions or anything. I don't think there was any representatives of FIFA there, as far as we can tell.
okay. Toronto's the only other Canadian city that's
Yes,
hosting?
Toronto's the only other Canadian city, and they're hosting, I think, 6 matches, either
Okay.
5 or 6, and yeah, and they have a bit of a different arrangement there around the way they're handling the costs between the province and the city government.
Okay. Okay. What does the mayor think of all of this?
Well, Vancouver Mayor Ken Sim is so far, he's a big booster of this tournament. He's a big supporter. When he was asked questions about this, these cost increases at last week's event, he was pretty clear that he said Vancouver is, competing with cities around the globe for tourism, for attracting talent. And he says, the FIFA World Cup represents a major sort of chance to advertise and promote Vancouver and promote the Vancouver brand around the world, highlight the best city on the planet, as he liked to say. He says, he feels like this is going to be, he said, the payoff is huge. That's his view, is that this is an investment that's going to pay off in a major way for Vancouver. He's a big supporter of this. And if he has any concerns about how the costs appear to be escalating, he certainly was not saying that. He feels like the benefits that are being anticipated right now are, if anything, conservative, and he thinks the benefits will actually be huge.
Right. Well, he has no, reading your story, has no tangible evidence of that. He says it's a gut feel, whatever
Gut
that
feel,
means.
those are his words. Yep.
Right. Which I don't know what that means, but it doesn't give me any great comfort that it's going to be a benefit or necessarily. I mean, it's happening in the middle of summer, isn't it?
The tournament?
Yeah.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's in the summer.
So it's happening in peak tourism season for Vancouver already, when we'll be awash in cruise ships and other tourists. So where's the immediate benefit of this? I take it Sim and others are talking about the longer term benefits, but in terms of attracting more tourists to the city, I feel like we're already pretty full up in the summer.
Yeah, no, I think, I mean, when the governments are sharing their sort of economic impact benefit estimates, they're typically they're saying during the tournament and in the 5 years following. So that's the number they're using, and they have come up with these estimates that the act of hosting, I'm not sure what the actual change will be during those specific months in June and July, 2026. I don't know what the actual change could be. And presumably, hotel rooms might be more expensive and restaurants will potentially be busier, and there could be people staying as well, not only in downtown Vancouver, but in other municipalities, around the region. So, I think it will generate some, but anyway, that's what they're sort of uh, holding on to, is the idea that there will be these benefits for a few years after the tournament. And those are the numbers they're sharing, when they say they believe it'll add $1 billion to BC's GDP, during the tournament and for 5 years after.
Okay. Well, I mean, we did host an Olympics, which was obviously much larger in terms of the number of events and the duration. Was there ever a generally accepted independent assessment of the impact of the Olympics? I mean, I don't know that there ever was. Was there, as far as whether we made money in the long run off of tourism directly related to the Olympics? How do you quantify that?
I'm not sure. No, I
Yeah.
don't know offhand. I think this is something that this question, people are trying to look at this. Experts trying to look at, not only for Vancouver but for other cities around the world that have hosted the Olympics or other major projects, events like this. And I mean, you can see some cities have done better jobs than others of planning so that the legacies of these kinds of mega projects can benefit local people in the long term, whether it's through, transportation upgrades or, developing new areas or whatever, into longer term housing. But,
Right.
highway upgrades, whatever, but,
True.
building new
True.
facilities. But as far as the cost benefit analysis of it, was that, how did it all work out? That's a
Right.
complicated, super tricky question. I don't
Now,
know
you make a good point there. With the Olympics, we had the sea to sky highway upgrades. We have something like the Hillcrest
Yep.
Center,
And
any number of things.
the
The
Canada
Olympic
line,
Village,
Richmond Oval, the
right?
development of Olympic Village. And I mean, you could say that all of these things could or should have been done anyways using public money. I mean, this is the job of governments, is to use tax money to provide public services and amenities that people rely on. So you could certainly make the argument that maybe those things should have been done anyways. But
Right. But in this case, there's nothing on that scale that's accompanying this. I mean, there is some upgrades to the stadium,
upgrades
but
to the
we're not
stadium itself,
building
I
any new
guess.
facilities, permanent facilities, under this scenario, are we?
Not that I know of. There might be some upgrades to what will be used for practice facilities that could be substantial, but I'm not sure. Like offhand, no, I don't know. But I mean,
Sure.
no, I mean, I think fair to say, as far as we know, they're not planning a major new rapid transit line like they were in the lead up to the Olympics, or
Sure.
or something similar. No,
Okay. Will the Broadway line be open by then? I'm trying to remember what the
it should
timing is.
be kind of well. I mean, initially it was 2025, and I think that the estimate was pushed to 2026. So it could be. It's a good question. It'll either be it'll be close one way or the other, I think.
I sure hope it is. 'Cause
Yeah.
it's a bit of a nightmare driving along there right now, and you don't really need the additional traffic going back and forth. Well, I guess depending on which way people are going, but that's interesting.
It could certainly be a useful way to transport more people with fewer cars when we have a big influx of additional people in the city. Yeah.
Right. All right. Okay, Dan. Well, we'll watch your reporting for hopefully some more detail on where all of our money is being spent. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Thanks.